All right, today we are diving deep, and I mean really deep, into one of the most pivotal moments in all of Scripture. We're talking about the Annunciation to Maryam, as it's told in the Qur'an. And we're not just going to retell the story. We're going to explore the massive theological questions it brings up, questions about the very nature of reality itself.
So, what's our guide for this whole exploration? Well, we're leading on a classical commentary of the 19th chapter of the Qur'an, Surah Maryam. And trust me, as we get into this, you'll see it's so much more than just a historical account. It's really a profound look into faith, into reality, and into the nature of divine power.
And that really brings us to the core question, the big one for this whole analysis. Think about it. When something happens that just completely defies the laws of nature as we know them, how do you even begin to wrap your head around it? How do we understand it?
Okay, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off with Maryam, and she's in a state of seclusion. She's actually withdrawn from her people, gone off to a place in the east just for devotion, and it's right there in that state of total spiritual purity and isolation that this incredible divine encounter happens. Now, you've really got to pay close attention to the wording here, because it's key. The divine messenger, he doesn't appear in some angelic form. No, he appears as a well-proportioned man. And listen, that isn't just a throwaway detail, it's an absolutely crucial element that's setting the stage for a really deep theological lesson about divine purpose.
So, to really get what's happening next, the commentary we're looking at introduces a pretty fundamental philosophical concept. The argument is basically this: the event we're about to see operates completely, and I mean completely, outside the normal rules of our world.
See, in our day-to-day reality, everything is connected in what philosophers call the chain of causes. It's pretty straightforward, right? For something to happen, something else has to cause it in a physical, observable way. A child, for example, requires two parents. That's just the established natural order of things.
But, and this is a big but, the source text draws a really sharp line in the sand. It contrasts creation through this normal, natural chain of causes with creation by a direct divine command. So, on one hand, you've got the rules of matter and time. On the other, you have something that just transcends them completely. And the birth of Jesus, the argument goes, falls squarely into that second category. It's presented as an act of pure, unadulterated will. And this next interaction, it illustrates the concept perfectly. Maryam, quite logically, voices the logic of the chain of causes. She asks, how can this happen without the necessary cause? I mean, it's a fair question, right? But the angel's reply just dismisses that entire framework. He says, it is easy for me. And boom. Right there, in that moment, the conversation shifts from the world of biology to the realm of pure theology. Okay, so this then peels back another layer of the analysis, because the form of the messenger itself, an angel showing up as a man, that raises its own set of pretty profound questions. And don't worry, the classical commentators, they address this head-on.
And you have to understand, this is a very sensitive point. In a tradition that really emphasizes modesty and separation between men and women who aren't related, how is an encounter like this, a solitary one, even justified? Well, the text doesn't shy away from this at all. In fact, it provides a really detailed spiritual explanation. So the analysis breaks it down into 4 key justifications. First, and this is the big one, this was an angel, not a man. So the rules of human social interaction, they just don't apply here. Second, the human form was necessary. It was a vehicle for clear communication. Third, think about Maryam's immediate reaction. It wasn't curiosity, it wasn't fear. She immediately seeks refuge in God, which just proves her incredible piety. And finally, you have to remember, this wasn't some social call. This was an act of divine necessity.
All right, so that brings us to the nature of the communication itself. I mean, how exactly did Maryam receive this message? The source material actually places her experience within a very specific spiritual hierarchy. So the commentary outlines this kind of ladder of divine communication. Let's start at the bottom. You have what's called ilham, or general inspiration. You can think of this like a sudden, righteous gut feeling. A step up from that, you have true dreams. Then we get to kalam, or direct address, and this is a conscious, waking conversation with a divine messenger. And then at the very, very top, you have wahi, or prophetic revelation, which is reserved for prophets who are bringing scripture. Now, what's so essential to understand here is that Maryam's experience, it wasn't just a dream. It wasn't some vague feeling. It was a direct, waking conversation with an angel. And that places her at an incredibly high spiritual station, way beyond general inspiration. So,
Let's put all the pieces together. You have the miracle, the nature of the messenger, the type of communication. What does all this tell us about Maryam herself? Well, it all comes together to make a really powerful statement about her place in theology.
Well, the Quran describes the event and its outcome, her son, as an ayah, which means a sign. But here's the crucial part. It's not just a sign. It's designated as a sign for all people. That little detail makes the whole lesson universal and timeless.
And really, that is the ultimate takeaway here. This story isn't just being presented as some historical event that happened once. No, it's a teaching moment for all of humanity. It's a profound lesson about the absolute nature of God's will, and it's a demonstration of the incredible heights of spiritual purity a human being can actually reach.
And then you have the angel's final statement, which closes the conversation with this absolute finality. Think about that for a second. This wasn't a plan being worked out. It was a decree that was being announced. It points to a universe where events are already written in the knowledge of God, long before they ever actually happen.
So, when all is said and done, what does this ancient story, filtered through centuries of deep theological analysis, really ask us to consider? I think it suggests that the chain of causes, the cause and effect we experience every single day, is maybe just one layer of reality. And that beneath it, holding it all up, there's a more fundamental power, a divine will that is, in the end, the only cause that truly matters.